What's going on, gamblers? It's your boy Clint again here from the Die Hard MMA podcast for the Total Takedown UFC 276 edition. We're going over the card again. We're talking overs and unders. The odds are brought to you by Superbook Sports. Make sure you check them out. And of course, we are hosted by Pub Sports Radio. We be Pub Ben. Let's get into this bad boy. First fight of the night, Jalin Turner taking on Jessica Rose Clark. Women's MMA, total set at 2.5. Over 2.5 is minus 220. Under 2.5, plus 190. I gotta lean with the over. I don't feel super strongly about this one. I personally think Jalin Turner can pull the upset here, and we know she's an armbar specialist, so this under could absolutely happen. The problem is, Jessica Rose Clark isn't finishing anybody, so if this is at all competitive, if there's no armbar to be had, this thing is flying over. Both women could win by decision. It could be close. It could be gritty. It can go to the judges. It could be another split. More chances than not it's going over, but I actually think Jalin could snap an arm here, and it might go under, so not touching it. I'll say over. Don't bet this one. Next up, Maycee Barber taking on Jessica I. Same exact situation here. Over is minus 260. Under is plus 230, and that is a 2.5 total for this fight. And I think even more so than the last fight, there's less of a finishing upside here. What, Maycee Barber is going to punch a hole in Jessica I's face? Yeah, the only person to knock her out is Valentina Shevchenko. They are not the same. That's not happening. Now, Maycee Barber doesn't like getting hit, but she always manages to dig deep and stay in the fight. Jessica I doesn't finish anybody either. This thing is going to decision. I'm actually surprised that it's not like minus 400 for the over 2.5. This thing is going to the cards, so that over minus 260 doesn't seem half bad and seems almost like a parlay piece here to me. Andre Munhoz taking on Uriah Hall. Total set at 1.5 here for this one. And I've got a sneaking sensation this one goes over, folks. Over 1.5 is plus 120. The under 1.5 is minus 140. And the under basically says Andre Munhoz round one sub. That's what he's been doing. That's what everyone expects him to do. However, Uriah Hall has never been submitted. I go back again to that Antonio Carlos Jr. fight. He got backpacked for 12, 13 straight minutes, never gave up a choke. Now, Munhoz might be like the next generation grappler. Maybe he finds something. Maybe he squirms for an arm and it ends up going under. Maybe Uriah Hall decides to throw a spinning heel kick in round one instead of in round three, so maybe it finishes early in that respect. More often than not, though, I think Munhoz probably grounds Uriah Hall, and Hall is able to stay safe, and this thing flies over. So I kind of like that plus money at over 1.5. Obviously, two insane finishers, so it could definitely go under. Both guys are more than capable of finishing the other, but I kind of feel like this one's going to go a little bit deeper. Dricus du Plessis taking on Brad Tavares. Total set at 2.5. This bad boy's at a pick'em. And I kind of like the under here. I kind of like violence. Dricus is a guy with a 100% finish rate. Never seen the judges' scorecards. Every single loss inside the distance. Every single win inside the distance. Now, Brad Tavares on the flip side, he's a decision machine. Now, he does have a few TKO wins. So, considering his opponent can be hit, has been hit, gets hit a lot, Brad might be able to put down Dricus du Plessis. I think the more than likely thing is Dricus probably hurts Brad Tavares. He has been cracked by some serious power punchers in the past, and that's really been how he ends up getting finished. That's exactly what Dricus is. But if Dricus gasses out trying to do that, he'll be easy pickings for Brad Tavares deep in the fight. The 2.5 is a little bit sketchy. If you have a book that'll let you go fight doesn't go the distance, that's probably more what I would lean on because you want those extra 2 minutes and 30 seconds. This one could be close. I don't know if I'm going to invest in it just yet. I might end up passing, but I'm leaning towards the under. I kind of like violence here. Gabe Green taking on Garry. Another 2.5 total. Over is minus 140. Under is plus 120. Another spot exactly like the last one. I lean to under with the violence, and I would probably shop around for a fight doesn't go the distance for that extra 2.5 minutes on this particular one, just because Gabe Green is going to force a firefight here. Garry, he's got some nasty pop on his punches. He's a very slick striker. He's got a tight guillotine. We haven't really seen his ground game in the UFC, but it is something that he has in his back pocket. I'm waiting for the moment to pounce on that submission prop for Garry. I just don't think this is the spot. Gabe Green just got promoted to BJJ brown belt. He is a kill or be killed type of fighter. Storms in, lots of leg kicks, swings heavy leather. Even though he gets hit a lot, he's been very durable, very recoverable, manages to bounce back in those fights. Eventually, if you keep running face first into punches, though, somebody good is going to get you. So I think Ian Garry can punch up Gabe Green's face. I think Gabe Green can force a firefight, and I don't know if Ian Garry is going to thrive or if he's going to collapse in that firefight. So I do think this one is going to go under. I think we see violence here, but again, I would rather pay like even money or minus 115 on doesn't go the distance rather than the 2.5 at plus 120. Donald Cowboy Cerrone taking on Jim Miller. Total set at 1.5 for this bad boy. Over 1.5 is minus 140. The under 1.5 is plus 120. And you would think that under 1.5 is an easy slam dunk at plus odds. Not so fast, my friends. Hold the phone. Guys, I like Donald Cerrone a lot here in this spot. Jim Miller's win equity is mostly a round one blitz, and that's what he tends to do to people. But even in his last couple fights, taking on kids that are not quite UFC caliber, it took him to the second round. He did knock them out in the second round, but he didn't get it done in round one. He's not taking down Donald Cerrone. If he does take out Donald Cerrone, he's not finishing in Donald Cerrone via submission. That's just not happening. So this thing is probably going to get extended. We probably get a kickboxing match. Donald Cerrone at 170, taller, longer, bigger, probably more physically strong. The gas tank is a question mark. I'm not sure who has the better one at this point. Both guys are shot, so the finishing upside probably is not what it used to be. I think this thing can get over 1.5. I don't mind that minus 140. I do think we see the second round, so it's just a matter of can we get over 2 minutes and 30 seconds of that second round. Jalen Turner taking on Brad Riddell. Total set at 2.5 here. Over 2.5 is plus 140. The under 2.5 minus 160. This is my 7-unit bet for the weekend, folks. I have a 100% hit rate on my 7-unit bets. That's not telling you to tail me for your life savings or anything like that. I'm just telling you the facts. I went 3-0. That's my max bet. I never go 10 units on anything. 7 is the biggest I've ever gone on anything. And so far, I've hit all 3 of them that I've chosen to invest that way. Except I did fight doesn't go the distance. I bought the extra, 2.5 minutes. I got minus 175 much earlier in the week. You can get under 2.5 for minus 160. I still do think this goes under. I'm still thinking violence here. I prefer to have the extra couple minutes in my back pocket, but if you only have access to a 2.5, I'm absolutely still saying under. I think this ends in the second round. Jalen Turner, he's a elite finisher. He's a massive size bully. This guy could fight at 185 if he wanted to. Somehow makes the cut down to 155. No idea how. He's tall, he's long, he's got those big Muay Thai knees, which I think are going to be a problem for Brad Riddell. He likes to kick at his opponent's abs and drain away at the gas tank, chip away at the durability. Straight punches down the middle, switches over to knees and elbows once he gets in close. Excellent range management. Now, Brad Riddell on the flip side, he's got big power winging hooks, and he's hurt a couple of his opponents several times with those. Hasn't quite gotten the finish in the UFC, but he's also been facing a murderer's row of opponents and ends up switching gears to his grappling really to kind of seal off the rounds and grind out the wins. Jalen Turner is a guy who's been knocked out several times. If he gets a little too close to Brad, if he gets in a little too tight, I think he can get hit with one of those big power winging hooks. He could go down from something like that. However, I think Brad Riddell's durability is just a huge question right now. He got dropped by a jab against Drew Dober, even though he came back and won that fight. Someone like Jalen Turner, he's got a 79% takedown defense rating. He's a BJJ black belt on the mat. He's a much bigger man. So if Brad Riddell tries to get in on like a panic takedown after getting clipped or hurt, I think he's going to eat a knee to the face. I think he's going to get scooped up with a Darce choke. Like, I don't see how this fight turns into a grind. Jalen Turner forces action, and I think that Brad Riddell is either going to have to sink or swim in a firefight. I got Jalen Turner finishing this thing, but either way, even if Brad is the one that comes in here, pulls off the upset, he is the betting underdog, I think that he probably does it by knockout if he ends up getting the win, because that's the way he's going to have to fight Jalen Turner. He won't be able to take his time. He won't be able to grind. He's not going to Khabib Jalen and put him on his back for 15 minutes. I just don't see it. So I think we got violence. I'm on the under. Pedro Munhoz taking on Sugar Shot O'Malley. Total set at 2.5 here. Over 2.5 minus 120. Under 2.5 plus 100. I am pissed off that I came late to the party on this one. I was talking about it on the show, and by the time I got off the show and actually made the bet, I missed the over 2.5 at plus 100 even money. I got minus 115. That's moved up to minus 120 at this point. I think Sean O'Malley by decision is probably the move here. Pedro Munhoz has been incredibly durable his entire career. This guy has not been finished, and I don't think Sean O'Malley is going to be the first one to do it. He could Don't get me wrong, he could, but I just think we can rely on Pedro continuing to be durable. It's something he's done his whole career, and this is a 15-minute fight. It's not a 25-minute fight, so he doesn't have to hang in there all that long to make it work, and I think Sean O'Malley is going to be respectful of the finishing and the power ability of Pedro Munhoz. You know, those nasty leg kicks, he's not going to want to get hit with those. The guillotine, he's not going to want to play around with that. So I think Sean O'Malley probably plays at distance and puts a volume clinic up at this point. If that's the case, I don't think Pedro has really any problem surviving and staying in the fight. So over 2.5, that's the move here for me. Bryan Barberena taking on Robbie Lawler. Total set at 2.5. Over is -180. Under is +160. I mean, this is a geriatric old man fight at this point. Both these guys very near retirement. I think both guys have durability concerns. I know Barb has been able to stay in the fight and get it to a decision in the last couple of times, but geez, it's been hairy. I keep thinking he's going to go down. He doesn't. I don't really have a good read on it because every time I think he's going to get finished, he somehow manages to wrestle and grind his way back in the fight. But then he lost to a guy like Jason Witt, so how can you really count on him for anything? Robbie Lawler, again, next to retirement, coming off the win over Nick Diaz. I like some of the things I saw from Robbie. You know, the finishing killer instinct is definitely something that's still there. However, he's fighting a guy that's not quite as shot and definitely won't be waving the white flag. I think there's some upside to violence here. If I was going to bet anything in this spot, I'd be betting the under 2.5 at +160, except again, both these guys have managed to dig deep and stay in the fight. So not one that I'm probably actually going to pull the trigger on. I'll probably just fireball and popcorn it, enjoy this fight as a spectator, maybe throw some lunch money at the violence bet just because I think the plus number makes a little bit of sense the way these guys fight, but we'll see what happens. Nothing official from me, nothing big, definitely no confidence. Alex Pereira taking on Sean Strickland. Total set at 1.5. Over -175. Under +155. I'm kind of leaning a little bit towards the over, as crazy as that sounds. Sean Strickland likes to stay in the face of his opponents, but he's been tough and durable anytime that, you know, he's gotten into a firefight. He's gone 25 minutes doing this kind of a thing. Alex Pereira, we saw in his last couple fights in the UFC, his opponents always resort to trying to grapple with him, but he's more than capable of going 15 minutes and having kind of a technical striking match. I do think he'll kind of pick and poke at Sean and try and find a way to find an opening when Sean is pressuring him and getting in his face. There is some chance that Sean Strickland maybe comes out and grapples, and if he does that, you know, people are talking about the submission prop. I totally get that, but at the same time, I don't think if this hits the ground once that he's just going to like slice and dice Alex Pereira. I mean, Pereira's working with Glover. You know his takedown defense, get up game, and submission defense are all going to be on point coming into this thing. That's like the only thing he is drilling is get this fight to kickboxing range for me. So I'm not convinced that Sean is just going to be able to ground him once and tap him out immediately. So I kind of like the over, but geez, -175. I don't want to pay -175 when you got boys that are swinging as much power as these two have in their hands. So I'll say over, but definitely not betting it. Max Holloway, Alexander Volkanovski. Over 4.5 is -240. Under 4.5 is +210. Hey, this is one of those ones where we talk about the rematches. They never play out the exact same, right? Except the first and second fights for Max and Volk absolutely played out exactly the same. You know, two very close, very tight decisions. These guys are both incredibly durable. While they're more than capable of finishing, they're both more volume guys than they are power guys. So since they both tend to side with the volume and they're both crazy durable, nobody can get the finish here. I'm tempted to like do the zigzag thing here though, because +210 for the under 4.5 when it's their third title fight. They've been in the cage for 50 minutes with each other, and the way Alexander Volkanovski is sitting on punches these days, the way Max Holloway had Volk hurt and rocked badly in the second round of the second fight, I kind of feel like a finish is coming for this one. That's more of a tinfoil hat theory than anything. No real evidence to support it besides the fact that these guys are getting older, the damage is mounting, and both of them appear to be looking more for the finish than they used to be in their recent fights. I don't want to pay -240 to go over on this one because I wouldn't be shocked if one of these guys steps their foot on the gas pedal and says, I'm not playing it safe like I did the last two, and tries to end it much, much sooner, kind of forcing the other guy to make the same adjustment and we end up in a firefight. I don't know. I'll say under. I'm not very confident. That would be a sprinkle if you end up doing it, but I'll say under just because +210 that's hard for me to pass up. Jared Cannonier versus Israel Adesanya in your main event here. Total set at 4.5. Over 4.5 is -105. Under 4.5 is -115. And I kind of like the under here. I kind of like violence. Jared Cannonier is a guy with big, ripping power. He loves those big, heavy leg kicks. He can take down his opponent from time to time. He mixes in the grappling. Israel Adesanya has been fantastic when it comes to defending takedowns. Marvin Vettori had nothing for him. I can't really see Jared Cannonier succeeding where someone like Marvin Vettori failed, but Jared Cannonier is a physical freak when it comes to strength, so maybe he can just kind of rip Adesanya to the mat. We'll see if he can pull that off. Even if he can do that, I don't know that he's finishing Adesanya down there, though. It might be everything he's got just to hold him there. You know, Izzy's one of these guys, been working the takedown defense, been working the get-up game. He's ready for this kind of stuff. Adesanya, though, he's going to have a height and reach advantage. He's going to have a significant striking advantage. He has a speed advantage. He's the far slicker striker, and he's on a mission for this one. He's talked about trying to make this thing look easy. And again, I believe him. I absolutely think he's going to come out here and make this fight look very, very simple. I think Israel Adesanya can knock out Jared Cannonier. He's been knocked out before, and Izzy is a guy who's out here looking to make a statement. He's had his eyes on Jared for a very long time, so I think he's ready for some kind of a war and high-intensity type of fight. Jared Cannonier, I think, needs a finish to get the win. I can't see him winning 25 minutes with this man. So, yeah, under 4.5, minus 115, that's the way that I would be looking. That's the Total Takedown, folks. Tune in tomorrow for the undefeated post-weigh-in show. Make sure you check out Pub Sports Radio and Superbook Sports. Also, check out my Twitter. I've got a Thrive Fantasy promo code for you guys if you want a different out when it comes to your betting. It's kind of like Prize Picks had a baby with DFS. Really cool setup. Deposit codes with extra tickets and stuff like that using my promo code DIEHARD over at Thrive Fantasy. Make sure you check that out. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. Smash the like button. Let's roll. We'll see you tomorrow.